Star Wars: A New Hope is the film that changed cinema forever, a space opera that turned a struggling director's fever dream into a global phenomenon. But even after nearly 50 years, this film is still hiding secrets. Did you know Obi-Wan Kenobi was never supposed to die in the original script? Or that a runaway R2-D2 unit rolled straight onto the set of a biblical epic filming next door? Or that George Lucas secretly recycled the same explosion footage twice and nobody noticed? Today we're uncovering 18 hidden truths about Star Wars: A New Hope, including shocking Easter eggs that reveal a secret connection to the Kurosawa samurai and World War II bomber film universes. Number 1. The scrapped alternate ending. In the final film, Obi-Wan Kenobi's death is one of the most iconic moments in cinema. He faces Darth Vader in a lightsaber duel on the Death Star, locks eyes with Luke across the hangar, raises his blade, and lets Vader strike him down. His body vanishes. Luke screams, and in that single moment, the entire saga finds its emotional engine. But that scene almost never happened. In 2016, Peter Mayhew, the actor who played Chewbacca, shared George Lucas's original draft on Twitter, and it revealed a completely different story. In that version, Obi-Wan Kenobi survives his encounter with Darth Vader, then fights his way through Stormtroopers and shoots the blast door panel, letting the entire group escape together aboard the Millennium Falcon. No sacrifice, no vanishing act. In fact, in that draft, Ben continues guiding Luke from the Rebel war room via comlink, alive and well, standing right there in the base. So why did that ending get replaced? It was Marcia Lucas, George's then-wife and editor, who suggested killing Ben. Lucas resisted at first, but eventually agreed. It made Vader a far greater threat. That single decision reshaped the entire saga. Without Obi-Wan's death, there are no Force ghosts, no spiritual guidance on Dagobah, and Luke's journey becomes a completely different story. Number 2. The 2 words Vader didn't want you to hear. In the Death Star conference room scene, Admiral Motti, played by Richard LeParmentier, openly mocks Darth Vader's faith in the Force. But listen closely to what he says just before Vader Force chokes him. Motti begins referring to the Rebels' hidden fortress, and Vader cuts him off mid-sentence. That phrase is a direct wink at Akira Kurosawa's 1958 film The Hidden Fortress, the movie George Lucas most openly drew from when creating Star Wars. It's a blink-and-you-miss-it meta-reference buried inside a scene most people remember only for the choking. Number 3. The droid that crashed a biblical epic. While filming Tatooine scenes on location in Tunisia, the Star Wars crew wasn't alone. Just nearby, director Franco Zeffirelli was shooting his biblical epic Jesus of Nazareth. One day, a remote-controlled R2-D2 unit malfunctioned and stopped responding to its radio controls. The crew could only watch as the runaway droid rolled right off their set and straight onto the Jesus of Nazareth production. No damage was done, but imagine being an extra in first-century Nazareth and watching a beeping metal cylinder roll past your sandals. It's one of the most absurd on-set mishaps in film history, and a story that perfectly captures the chaos of the original Star Wars shoot. Number 4. The hero was originally a teenage girl. In George Lucas's early drafts, the Luke Skywalker equivalent wasn't a farm boy at all. The protagonist was a 16-year-old girl who falls in love with Han Solo. Skywalker wasn't even a surname, it was a Jedi title. The main character's real name was Starkiller, and the character who eventually became Mace Windu in the prequels started life in these drafts as Mace Windy, conceived as Princess Leia's brother and the story's narrator. It wasn't until the third draft in August 1975, after Lucas discovered Joseph Campbell's The Hero with 1,000 Faces, that the story began to take the shape we know. That's when Luke became a young male farm boy, and Obi-Wan Kenobi entered the story for the first time. Number 5. The Cantina scene was originally a decapitation. In the Mos Eisley Cantina, Obi-Wan ignites his lightsaber and slices off Ponda Baba's arm to protect Luke. It's a quick, decisive moment that tells you exactly how dangerous a Jedi can be. But the original filmed version was far more brutal. Obi-Wan didn't dismember Ponda Baba, he decapitated him. Footage of the alien's severed head rolling across the cantina floor was actually shot and sat unseen for decades. It was finally shown publicly at the Cantina Archaeology panel during Star Wars Celebration 2019. The change was almost certainly made because a decapitation was too graphic for the film's intended audience. But knowing this footage exists adds a darker edge to what's already one of the most iconic bar fights in movie history. Number 6. Why every Stormtrooper is left-handed. Here's something you probably never noticed. Watch the Stormtroopers carefully throughout the film, and you'll see that almost every single one of them holds their blaster in their left hand. It's not a casting choice, and it's not deliberate world building, it's a simple accident of prop design. The E-11 blaster props were built from real 1950s Sterling submachine guns, which had a magazine clip sticking out from the left side. When right-handed actors held the weapon normally, that clip kept banging into their chests, so most of them just switched hands. It's one of those details that once you see it, you can never unsee. An entire army of elite soldiers, all shooting with the wrong hand. Number 7. The Playboy Centerfold, hidden inside a spaceship. The model makers at Industrial Light and Magic were known for sneaking things into their builds, and the Tantive 4 is one of the best examples. That's Princess Leia's blockade runner, the very first ship you see in the film. Inside the tiny miniature cockpit, the ILM crew pasted a small Star Wars movie poster on the wall, and right next to it, they placed a Playboy Centerfold pinup. Whether either is actually visible in the final film is still debated by fans, but production stills confirm they're there. It's a perfect snapshot of ILM culture in the late 70s, a group of young artists building the future of visual effects and leaving their fingerprints and their sense of humor inside every model they touched. Number 8. The same explosion used twice. The entire climax of A New Hope, the ticking clock countdown where the Death Star is about to fire on the rebel base at Yavin 4, was not in the original script. The film was supposed to end with the escape from the Death Star, the Millennium Falcon fleeing with a tracking device planted on it. No trench run. No Battle of Yavin. George Lucas realized in post-production that the film needed a bigger ending, so he did something ingenious. He took the footage of the Death Star's weapon powering up and destroying Alderaan earlier in the film, and he literally reused it, cutting the same clip into the Battle of Yavin sequence to create the urgency of the weapon about to fire again. He stitched together existing shots of Peter Cushing as Grand Moff Tarkin to sell the countdown. The most iconic space battle in cinema was essentially assembled in the editing room from footage that was never meant for it. Number 9. The blood vessel that changed the camera angle. The trash compactor set was built for maximum realism, which meant filling it with actual garbage. The smell was reportedly unbearable. During the scene where Luke gets pulled underwater by the Dianoga creature, Mark Hamill, who plays Luke, held his breath for so long that he burst a blood vessel in his eye. The injury was visible enough that the remaining shots for the sequence had to be filmed from only one side of Hamill's face to hide the damage. And that wasn't his only problem during the shoot. Before Tunisia filming even began, he had injured his arm. Later, between principal photography and reshoots, he broke his nose in a car accident, further limiting what additional scenes could be filmed. Number 10. The head bump that got its own backstory. One of cinema's most beloved bloopers happens when a Stormtrooper walks into a low door frame during the Death Star raid. It's quick, it's clearly an accident, and fans have laughed about it for decades. But Lucasfilm gave it an official explanation. The 2017 anthology book Star Wars, From a Certain Point of View, includes a short story called Bump, written by Ben Acker and Ben Blacker. It reveals the trooper, designated TD-110, hit his head because he was having a delayed reaction to Obi-Wan's Jedi mind trick from earlier on Tatooine. The realization that he'd been manipulated struck him at the worst possible moment. George Lucas loved the original blooper so much that he added a sound effect to the bump in the special edition and even had Jango Fett bump his head on the Slave One doorframe in Attack of the Clones as a deliberate callback. Number 11. Han Solo's girlfriend at the bar. Rough cut footage from the Mos Eisley Cantina, taken from the infamous lost cut assembled by the film's original editor, reveals a version of the scene that's very different from what audiences saw. Several alien creatures that didn't make the final film are visible, and the Greedo confrontation is shown from different angles with extended dialogue. But the biggest surprise is a character named Jenny, who sits next to Han Solo at the bar and makes out with him. She was cut entirely from the finished film, and no trace of her remains in the theatrical version. It's a reminder that Han Solo was originally conceived as a rougher, more freewheeling character before the final edit shaped him into the lovable rogue audiences fell for. Number 12. The Samurai Who Said No Twice. George Lucas's first choice for Obi-Wan Kenobi was not Alec Guinness. It was Toshiro Mifune, the legendary Japanese actor who starred in Kurosawa's Seven Samurai, Yojimbo, and The Hidden Fortress, the very film that inspired Star Wars. Mifune turned it down because he believed a low-budget science fiction film would damage the dignified image of the samurai. Undeterred, Lucas then offered him the role of Darth Vader instead, since the helmet would hide his face. Mifune said no to that too. According to his daughter Mika, Vader's iconic helmet was actually designed with Mifune in mind. If he had accepted either role, the entire visual and cultural identity of the Jedi would have been even more explicitly rooted in Japanese samurai tradition. Number 13. The Bounty Hunter Built from a Drink Dispenser. Back in the Mos Eisley Cantina, there's a beverage dispenser visible in the background behind the bar. It's an unremarkable piece of set dressing that most viewers never notice, but that prop had a second life. When the production team needed to build the bounty hunter droid IG-88 for The Empire Strikes Back, they grabbed that same dispenser and turned it into the droid's head. ILM and the prop department constantly recycled practical parts between films, and this is one of the most famous examples. A piece of bar equipment in one movie became the skull of one of the galaxy's deadliest bounty hunters in the next. Number 14. The novel that spoiled and contradicted the film. The official novelization of Star Wars was published on November 12, 1976, a full 6 months before the film hit theaters. It was ghostwritten by Alan Dean Foster, credited to George Lucas, and Foster wrote the entire thing in about 6 weeks without seeing a single frame of footage. Because he worked only from the shooting script, the book is full of differences. Jabba the Hutt is described as a fat biped with a scarred skull, not a giant slug. Luke's call sign is Blue 5 instead of Red 5. Chewbacca receives a medal at the ceremony, something fans complained was missing from the film for decades. The prologue names Emperor Palpatine and calls Vader a Sith Lord, terms that never appear in the finished movie. And in one bizarre moment, Obi-Wan references a duck, prompting Luke to ask, "What's a duck?" It's become one of the quirkiest footnotes in Star Wars history. Number 15. The director who skipped his own premiere. The production of A New Hope nearly broke George Lucas. Constant setbacks, budget overruns, and a British crew that openly mocked the project took a serious physical toll. Lucas was rushed to the hospital with severe chest pains and diagnosed with hypertension and exhaustion. Doctors told him to reduce his stress immediately, which was impossible in the middle of finishing the film. By the time it was done, Lucas was so certain Star Wars would fail that he skipped the premiere entirely. He went on vacation to Hawaii with his friend Steven Spielberg instead. He found out the film was a massive hit when someone told him to turn on the news, and it was during that very trip that Lucas and Spielberg came up with the idea for Raiders of the Lost Ark. Number 16. The real bombing raid behind the trench run. The climactic trench run on the Death Star wasn't just inspired by World War II. It was directly modeled after the 1955 British war film The Dam Busters, in which RAF Lancaster bombers fly along heavily defended German dams to deploy bouncing bombs. George Lucas used footage from the Dam Busters and the 1964 film 633 Squadron to brief ILM, editing together real aerial dogfight clips to demonstrate the exact pacing and energy he wanted. Some of the pilot dialogue in A New Hope mirrors lines from the Dam Busters almost word for word. And here's an extra layer. Gilbert Taylor, the cinematographer Lucas hired for A New Hope, had previously worked on the special effects sequences for the Dam Busters itself. Number 17. The Find That Made Lucas Quit Hollywood. A New Hope was released with no opening credits whatsoever, no director card, no studio logo, just the title crawl, and straight into the story. In 1977, that was almost unheard of for a major studio release. The Directors Guild of America fined George Lucas $250,000 for violating their credit guidelines. Lucas was so furious that he resigned from the guild entirely. That decision had consequences he didn't foresee. Because he was no longer a DGA member, his friend Steven Spielberg was blocked from directing Return of the Jedi since the guild would not have allowed it, and it pushed Lucas further toward independent filmmaking, reinforcing his desire to build Lucasfilm into a studio that didn't need Hollywood's permission. Number 18. The ending the studio actually wanted. And finally, here's how close the film came to a completely different finale. According to Marcia Lucas, who appeared in the docuseries Icons Unearthed, Star Wars 20th Century Fox executives had their own vision for how the movie should end. Frustrated by the film going over budget, they wanted to scrap the entire third act. Their preferred version would have simply shown the Millennium Falcon in a dogfight with 4 TIE fighters after escaping the Death Star. Then roll credits. No Rebel base, no trench run, no Battle of Yavin. George Lucas fought them and won. Had the executives gotten their way, there would have been no triumphant medal ceremony, no John Williams fanfare swelling as the credits roll. Star Wars would almost certainly not have become the phenomenon it became. Star Wars: A New Hope wasn't born as the myth we know today. It was argued over, rewritten, nearly gutted by its own studio, and held together by people who refused to stop pushing when everything said quit. So the next time you watch it, look a little closer. Which of these hidden truths surprised you the most? Let us know in the comments. And if this video changed how you see A New Hope, hit like and subscribe so you don't miss the next one.